Today we're going to go over how I created this piece of artwork right here on an aluminum composite panel. Hey YouTubers, greetings from the Always Messy Studio. I'm Bill Kennedy with W. Leon Artistry, although Always Messy Studio might be a good name change. Anyway, before we get into rolling footage, I have used 4 different colors through the eyes. This is going to roll pretty fast because we got a lot of ground to cover, so I'm going to try to explain a little bit. Alright guys, some of y'all seem, I like to make my sketch out and then put it on tracing paper. I want you to pay attention here how I mixed that blue up. Notice the color of that eye, and then I used a little bit of gray right there, and then now is when I'm matching the color on the eye. We start out with that lightest shade of tone, and then we're going to move into each successive darker shade, and that's all based upon a burnt sienna and then adding a little bit of blue violet to darken it to make that darkest mix in the very darkest mix. And of course we're going through some scratching and erasing techniques. Wanted you to see that even if you don't have a circle stencil that works right, then you can always move it around. Notice I put a little bit of blue in that glimmer of that eye, and then I cut out for that. And then you can see how I used a piece of tape and I blew off that piece of tape to create those lines in there. Then I'm going to start out by going pretty messy, and as you can see, and right now I don't even really have control of my paints, so I didn't worry about it too much because I got a lot of textures to put in here, so I wasn't too concerned if my paint wasn't flowing just right. I will get a grasp on it a little bit later. Start using texture stencils. I'm extensively using the texture stencils from Tommy Ham in this video, and I'll leave you guys a link down below. No, I'm not sponsored in any way. I don't get anything from Tommy. He's just a regular old guy like us trying to make a few dollars and makes a pretty cool product. So, and as you can see, I'm doing a lot of line work and a lot of stuff put in textures, and these are base texture layers. That dark black looking color that you see here is not actually black. It is very, very dark violet. Yeah, I told you guys it's going to move really fast, so it's important not to start jumping ahead. Anyway, next what we're going to do is we're going to mix up some colors. We're going to use a magenta right here, maybe add a little bit of yellow to darken it just a little bit. The colors that we come through next, we're going to start putting in some yellow in this cheek, some of these violets right here, this little bit of stuff here, and this blue. The browns that you see going in as we start to bring in these browns are all mixed up of violets with yellow, so it may be more, the violet may be a little more on the blue side, or it may be a little more on the red side, but all of the violets we used are desaturated with yellows. This yellow here is desaturated with violet, so it's more yellow than it is violet. And then we get to the blue color here, this teal color, that is opaque. It is blue, cerulean blue mixed with white and lightened up with white, and then with a little touch of yellow added to it to get that teal tone that we're going to go through next. And you can see right there how I figured out how to mix my tone. And so I'm going to come in here and we're going to lay that in really, really gently because we are working transparently, and build that color up lightly. And it's important not to go in there really too fast. Notice I'm letting that magenta run out. Notice that super, super fine detail I put in there in the eye. Of course, I freehanded that. There's other, techniques like split paper and things like that if you need to do that. Then we're going to erase out just a few little bit of highlights. Put that yellow in the cheek, and that won't all show up because we're going to go over it. And then you can see the violet tone that I'm using there. That violet is desaturated with a little bit of yellow. And then you'll notice that I sprayed an even darker shade along the paper around the fingers, and later we will even push them even further back. Show you how we've pushed them even deeper back once we start getting the color in there. Came in here and put the yellow in first, and then we're going to put that teal color over the top of it we talked about. That teal isn't opaque, and then we're going to come in here and add some textures. We'll spray lightly, very lightly over the top of those textures with our opaque mix, so those textures we put in will show through, but they won't be harsh like that, as if we scratch them out. I was using a fiberglass scratch pen in there. Now I'm going to come in here and start working on the forehead, and we're just going to use our shield. I'm using you can see the violet I use there, and you can see that I've added about yellow to that violet to create a brown tone, and we're just going to make some really splotchy looking stuff so to simulate that skin texture just a little bit. And then on the left side, we came in here with red violet, tiny little bit of yellow on that red violet, and then I added a little bit of red on the very, very left-hand side corner to my red violet to push it even further to the red tone.
Nah, man, Dave's not here.
So we're just going to come in here. I'm using my texture shield a lot so that it gets all that texture going. Run down through into the nose, and we're going to start changing up our colors just a little bit. Notice I use that base red violet in there first, and then I'm using that same brown tone from up above on the forehead. Very, very fortunate in that I knew that the brown tones, the yellows, and the violets mixed together when I erased back. If I didn't erase all the way back to white, that would create some of that skin tone look that I wanted without doing, having to do a whole lot of work or color matching to it. So it's all working transparently. Notice that I'm coming in here. That is a really dark violet. That's violet mixed, regular violet mixed with black on the edge there to catch that edge. Just putting that edge in there while we can. But then I've gone back to my mix of red, violet, and yellow, and then the other color that we have there is regular violet and just a little bit of yellow to knock that back. So there's a couple different violets going on there to create that overall look, and we probably will glaze back a little later, glaze a little bit color and shift those colors transparently as we get further down in there. And then we're just going to keep erasing back out textures until we get the textures that we want to. See how I'm pulling out little scratches and makes it look like little cracks in the painted surface that we have there. Using some Windex right there or reducer on a paper towel and dabbing it on there to create that, to smooth that out and push those harsh textures back and kind of make that paint, but you have to be very careful with it.
Dang, slow down. All right, guys, on my Patreon page, I have an hour-and-a-half long video of this painting. It's my first Patreon video up. If you guys want to head over there and check out what I got going on Patreon, that's cool. If you don't have $4, you can always donate to me to help out the channel. Is $1 is the minimum donation. And if you can't do that, hey, hit the share button, help spread the word. Let me get this channel growing, and hopefully, I won't continue to be starving and losing money doing this whole YouTube thing. Anyway, next we are going to work on this here, this section right here, and every color I've got in here is cobalt blue, cerulean blue. The cerulean blue is lighter than cobalt blue. It's also a brighter color, more to the green side. And then we've got a little bit of yellow. If you guys don't know how to mix these colors up, you need to be checking out my color theory video, and I will throw up a little card. It'll pop up on the screen when I get to editing the video later, and it'll pop up on the screen. In the top right hand corner, it'll give you a little bitty button that you can push and find the color theory videos. So then we're going to go through there, and then we're going to do some scratching and erasing, and we're going to roll that footage now.
All right, guys, coming in with the blues here. We start out with that cerulean blue. That actually is a mistake right there. I had to fix that, but no big deal. Using a little bit of X-Acto knife work here. You can't do a lot of scratching with the X-Acto knife and aluminum composite panel, but you can do a little bit. Notice I'm using that dot stencil, and then I am putting highlights in next to those dots. And I'm going to go in here and create little bitty cracks and see me freehand a lot of that little stuff. Most of my work for textures will be done with the eraser and then freehanding. So you notice how small some of those super fine details are, and you can always use a stencil if you need to. And then remember to put in highlights next to your pores where you put those dark spots in to create some of that realism there. Then we're going to erase out, after we get that blue in there, we're going to erase all that out and create all that chalky look on the lips.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I just come in, paint everything up, and if I do that, then you guys will give me lots of exposure. Yeah, sounds like a great deal.
I'm going to freehand and use a shield to do these cracks and textures, but it is important to note that you have to follow the direction. You don't have to follow every single line, but you have to make sure that the flow is going the right way.
All right, guys, going to do a lot of color coming in here now. When I came into this finger, I want to put this finger in
with an opaque yellow, which is yellow, and I'm going to add a little bit of white to it because yellow is a very, very transparent color naturally. It doesn't have really good coverage. When you add just a tiny little bit of white to it, it gets more coverage. And then here we're going to desaturate that yellow a lot more. The colors are entirely different. Then of course you've got the bright yellows here. But the bright yellows here, really, it's messing with you. The simultaneous contrast is what's messing with your head. The bright yellow here is actually the same color as here, and it's the same yellow that's down here. Some of this I'm going to freehand in with opaque yellow later, which is that yellow mixed with a little bit of white. We're going to roll through this pretty fast. In the comments below, guys, if you're confused about anything, got questions, in the comments below. If you don't like this new format, I know this is moving a lot faster. If you don't like this new format, let me know down in the comments below, and we'll see what we do. We might go back to some of the old style of techniques. But anyway, let's roll back to this footage.
All right, guys, you see the yellow color I used there, and then I'm going to use a desaturated orange and pull back a lot of highlights. As we go along further in this, you're going to see me pull out a dryer sheet and lay in there, and you're going to see me use my texture shield. And I want you to pay attention to the difference when I use a texture shield and spray it with a light over a dark or a dark over a light. Creates a different color. The red color you're seeing right there is a little bit of scarlet sprayed in very lightly, and then I desaturated that red, and I'll come back in here and add colors that are darker on top of it. The freehand work that I'm doing right there is done with black added to my yellow just a tiny little bit. That green right there is Viridian. It's actually too vibrant. We're going to kill that later. So I'm going to come back here, work back on this. Notice that's an olive green I'm coming over their top with. And then some of the other greens in the spots are going to be opaques, and I'm going to use just a desaturated green. So it's actually Viridian, and it's desaturated with a little bit of red to create that color, and maybe added a little bit of white to tone it down a lot. And then the colors that are going to along the right hand side are going to be red, violet, the normal violet, and then scarlet. And the darker red you see there is a desaturated red, which is red mixed with green. And lots of little textures going in there. And that blue color you see there is actually cobalt blue, and it's straight out of the cup. The blue on the fingertip is a little bit darker cobalt blue, and it's actually an opaque cobalt blue. But pay attention to how that texture lays out. This way is one way the texture will lay using that same shield. And then now I'm going to use it here. I'm going to take that opaque blue that I mixed up, and then I'm going to take some darker blue, and that's actually a transparent cobalt blue that I'm using on top of that. And then notice the difference that makes. So when I use the texture one way, it creates those cracks that are light, and the other way it creates those cracks that are dark on top, or the cracks are light one way, the cracks are dark. It creates a totally different effect. We're using opaque, very light blue, and then an opaque teal, and then an opaque white to create those highlights and textures around there. And then we'll knock them back just a little bit. We'll glaze over them just to knock them in a little bit.
You're going to see me create a lot of textures in here, freehand in here, and then this darker color through here is black mixed with the cobalt blue to get darker. When I came in here and shadow in here, after I get all this laid in, I'm going to shade it in to push that back both sides. I'm actually going to shade this in with a really reduced black. That black would be an absolute disaster to use on a skin tone, but since we've got so much color here against these blues and these violets and these reds, and we're working really light and transparently, the black is just going to mix in with those colors, and that all falls back to that color mixing. We're mixing colors, we're just mixing them on the surface instead of in our cup when I do that.
Yeah, so I'm going to spray off the edge of my stencil there.
you know, and then I'm going to freehand a lot of cracks, and I want to show you guys, you know, if you don't have stencils or whatever, you know, a piece of paper torn like that, spraying on it. Notice I'm spraying on the paper and just letting a little bit of paint fall off that to create those really small micro lines. You can create a lot of really cool and awesome skin textures that way. So I slowed that way down for you to see how that effect laid out. You know, you start crisscrossing with that, and you know, play with it a little bit, and you realize how many different textures and effects you can get. And here I am going in with that opaque white over the top of it, and as you know, as I told you before, I want you to pay attention to the difference it makes depending on which way you lay it out. And then the black colors, or the really dark blue, is what I use there mostly. And then when I get into that black, you know, and that almost black mix, but none of it actually is a true black. The only time I used any true black in here is where I talked about where I blended in that shading in the latter parts of the video. You know, that's the only time I actually used straight black, and it was really reduced. Showing you that how that micro dot stencil laid out and putting some color in it. I'm using a little bit of desaturated yellow. That's not orange, it's not brown. It's yellow mixed with a little bit of violet right there. And we're going to work around that, and then what I'm going to have to do is clean up that yellow, that bright yellow spot in there, and opaquely lay on the top of it. I want you to see how I'm freehanding those. What I actually did is over reduce the yellow, add a little bit of white to it, and I could even get coverage over the top. And on the left hand side I allowed it to blow out, but on the right hand side I allowed it to be very, very clean. Then we add a little bit of white there to add some textures, and then we'll glaze over that with orange to knock the blue shift back.
What a wild picture this one is. Have to do a little bit of work right here on the brow. You know, touch this thing up a little bit in a couple of places. But, you know, it's a wild picture. I'm going to tell you, it's very intense dealing with all those colors. It really messes with your eyes a lot when you're dealing with so many different colors next to each other. But anyway, if you guys like the video, hey, give me a thumbs up. Remember to share the video. That's the way we get people involved, and I can continue making these videos if I get more people, subscribers coming in. Anyway, you know, if you didn't like the video, give me the thumbs down. Remember, you just subscribe to the channel. You have to hit the notification bell, or YouTube will not notify you that new videos are out. But anyway, we appreciate y'all. Y'all take care. Bye.